Hey everyone, my name is Louis and this video is part of our series on a complete guide to creating a brand identity, which I've divided into 4 easy and actionable steps, namely how to define your brand, how to design your brand, how to deliver your brand, and how to create your digital brand. And in today's video, you're going to be learning step number 2 in the process, which is how to design your brand. So without further ado, let's get branding. And for those of you new to the channel, this is the Ultimate Brand Bible, your ultimate space for free advice, tips, tricks, hacks, how-to guides, templates, and resources on branding to help you get your brand to that next level. And you can start that process for your brand today by hitting the subscribe button and the little bell notification to make sure you don't miss any of the great stuff that we'll be putting out on a regular basis just for you. Now, if you haven't seen the first video in this series, which is called How to Define Your Brand, I'll let it pop up here. Be sure to watch that before you watch this one, because these steps do follow on each other, and you have to complete step 1 in order to move on to step 2. Step 1 is actually quite important. It's actually the foundation of your brand identity, and so I would not recommend starting to design your brand before you have to find your brand. Nonetheless, let's get into it. How to design your brand. Okay, so once you have your brand defined and all your foundational steps covered, it's time to translate everything into your visual identity. Your visual identity includes things like colors, typography, shape, icon, symbol, logo, design element, secondary brand mark, and imagery style. Now, let's firstly look at colors. Colors have a whole psychology behind them, and you should keep this in mind when creating your visual identity. People perceive and experience colors with certain emotions and psychological connections, and your brand is no different. This includes the color of your logo and your primary brand color, along with all your secondary colors that complement it. So this is basically the color psychology wheel that we have put together. It's quite common knowledge, this, and like I didn't come up with this. These are well established. I always just design them in this way so that they kind of look cool. But you can go and download this. I'll put the link in the description below. You can head over to ultimatebrandbible.com under free resources, and I'll put this up there. You can download this for yourself, maybe print it out so that you have it available. So these are essentially the colors and their positive and negative feelings that they elicit in people. So if you have a look at like red, you know, the positive feelings are power, passion, energy, strength, excitement. And you know, black would be sophistication, security, power. And you look at purple, wisdom, luxury, wealth. Blue, trust, loyalty, dependability, serenity, etc., etc. So, as I said, there's a psychology behind it. It's important to keep this in mind. Now, there's no real limit to the number of colors that you could technically use for your brand identity, but just like in many other areas of branding and marketing, once again, one of my golden rules, less is absolutely more. So this is another less is more situation. Now, brands usually have one primary brand color along with a few secondary colors to complement that primary color, and the secondary colors usually range from about 2 to 5. So this is an example of a color palette. This is not one color palette, so each let me just get the mouse here. So this would be one color palette for a brand. This would be a separate brand. Now what you have here then is the primary brand color, and these are the secondary brand colors. Now how these go together, there's many places where you can find these. I'll actually do one video on just on color, where we can go a little bit more in depth, and I'll show you a few places where you can, you know, you can define your primary brand color, and then based on that, you can get your primary brand colors ones that mix well with that, based on theories. There's certain ways of taking the color wheel and then applying these, let's say, patterns to it, or the theory, and then you can come up with your secondary brand colors that match that. But usually it's environmental. So let me show you this example here. You kind of get this from your environment, or you establish your colors first and then you create your environment according to this. But here, I mean, if you're having a travel agency that deals with beach holidays, you're gonna go to this kind of a beach vibe, and here you can already see the colors you find here in nature, and this could be obviously your identity. Once again, here bakery, you can see this, how the colors come from here, and here as well you can see how this environment is set up to match these colors. And this is nice for a coffee shop, or especially organic, natural vibe. So let me move on to typography. Typography refers to the font or fonts that you will use to represent your brand. You have to choose your fonts wisely because they speak volumes about who you are as a brand and what you represent. Now, for me, there are generally 6 major groups of typography that I would consider, which are serif fonts. These are classic looking fonts with anchor looking edges on the letters. These fonts are great for old school, classic feel, and can help your brand appear classic, elegant, and trustworthy. Examples are Times New Roman, and this, I'll show you some of the examples now, so we won't go through the examples in here. Sans serif fonts, these are more modern looking fonts, smooth edges. These will give your brand a more modern look and feel, and we'll look at some examples now. And then slab serif fonts, these are fonts that give the brand a strong, bold, and confident feel. And then we can look here, script fonts. Now, just as the name suggests, these are fonts that look cursive, like cursive handwriting, and they add a luxurious or feminine touch to your identity. They work well for personal brands and informal, artistic, and then also decorative fonts. Now, these are, as the name suggests, decorative by nature. You have to be careful when you choose this type of font because it could be very hard to read at times. But if executed well, it can give your brand a very distinctive and dramatic look and feel. So let me show you some of these examples. Once again, this I will have up there on under the free resources section of ultimatebrandbible.com. I'll put a link in the description as well, where you can go and grab this for yourself if you want to hang on to this and refer back to this from time to time during your brand identity creation process. You can see here the examples of the serif font. Gives you kind of the characteristics of it, what you could achieve by using these fonts, and then some examples of them. And then we'll move on to shapes. Similarly, forms and shapes also play a role in a brand's identity and how it reinforces specific characteristics of your brand you want to convey to your customers in a subtle way. And then let's look at some examples. So round shapes, circles, ovals, and ellipses. Warmth, openness, friendliness. In a brand's identity, rounded shapes can also communicate feelings of love, community, and unity. And rounded edges are also more feminine. Now, straight, sharp, the straight-edged shapes. Triangles, rectangles, and squares. Think of strength and efficiency. In a brand's identity, they usually convey feelings of stability and trust. And straight lines, vertical lines representing masculinity, power, and strength, while horizontal lines suggest more tranquil and calm feelings. And so, logo, putting it all together, remember that your logo is the core visual element to represent your brand to the world. So it's important that you get this right. Keep the following key things in mind when designing a logo for your brand. These are my top tips for putting it all together and creating your logo. Number 1, clearly communicate your brand's personality and values. And number 2, appeal to your audience. Keeping it simple and clean and avoiding overcluttering always yields the best results, in my opinion. And then number 3, stay relevant for a long period of time. Don't design something based on what's popular at any point in time just for the sake of being fashionable today. Trends will pass and you'll be stuck with that design for a long time after the trend has passed. So this is something that I could not stress enough. Try to stick within what the industry standards are, because they're there for a reason. If your goal is to go against the grain, completely go against the grain, then do so with intention and go all out with it. But be aware of the associated risks. So if you really want to stand out and be bold, then do it to the extreme. Otherwise you're going to be stuck in between. But once again, be aware of the associated risks. And then lastly, aim to create a logo that's memorable. You want your audience to remember your logo after they see it. You also want that impression to be positive and to last. So keep that all in mind. Now, secondary brand mark, design element. Not all brands have a secondary brand mark, but the overwhelming majority do. So I would definitely recommend creating something that suits your brand and not to skip this step. The secondary brand mark is a distinctive design element that is used on all your collaterals, etc. It's usually something taken from, inspired by, or an interpretation of your logo icon. So we'll go into this when we do another video, when we go into brand guidelines, brand identity systems. We can go a lot more into this, and we'll actually show some examples. I think I'll actually do a video of just showing exactly how to create your own brand guideline, and then we can touch on this and go a little bit more in depth. Lastly, imagery. Your brand imagery style is the style of imagery, photographs, photography, illustrations, iconography, and graphics that represent your brand identity and your brand. Imagery is a very powerful way of connecting with your audience and conveying the messages about your brand that you want your audience to connect with. The options are virtually unlimited when it comes to imagery style, but you have to stay consistent once you have identified the style that is representative of your brand. Now, consistency is the key. Simplicity and consistency. Golden rules. And that's it. Thank you very much. And we'll see you guys in the next video. If you haven't watched the first one, then you shouldn't have watched this one, actually. You should have gone back to the first one and watched that. But if you didn't, go check that one out. And you come back to this one and you check this one again. And then the next one should be coming up soon. The next phase would be how to deliver your brand, which is how you take this logo and your visual identity and you implement them on all of the different collaterals and everywhere your brand would appear, where your audience can see it. So we'll see you guys for the next one. Remember to like this video and subscribe, hit the little bell notification, and visit ultimatebrandbible.com for more. I'll also upload those two things that you can go and download them for free, grab them, print them out, put them up, and use them through your brand identity process. Till next time.